You guys might have remembered a video I made a few months ago or weeks ago at this point, talking about Sony's potential in making another handheld, taking another swing at the handheld market, which they had sacrificed to Nintendo due to the utter failure that was the Vita. And in that video, we talked about how Moore's Law made a video detailing the contents of potential contracts between Sony and AMD for development of a new APU designed for a new mobile platform for their games. And I decided to take a look at any more leaks and rumors, and there's been some very interesting developments in this terms of what the leaks are really talking about right now. And from what I've seen, they're pretty compelling. But as always, when it comes to leaks and rumors, do take it with a grain of salt, because none of this can be exactly confirmed right now, and if they are working on something, it's still like 2 years away. But a leak from a Russian leaker states, "By the way, I can confirm that Sony is preparing a new PSP for release, but they are only doing PS4 games in the launch lineup, which are currently available on PC, and therefore on Steam Deck. Retail chains, by the way, are quite skeptical. Either Sony is doing something completely, or they are still keeping it a secret from their partners." Sorry if that sounded weird. I don't think this is a perfect translation of what this Russian leaker said, but you get a close enough idea what they're trying to say. And it's very interesting. I love the idea of Sony dedicating, of the huge library of the PS4 and making that a major focus for this new potential handheld. And to compound that, there's been another leak of a job listing for Sony. The listing is a job application for a system software development program compatibility software development between different architectures at Sony Computer Entertainment Interactive, or whatever their full name is. And it's very interesting. The job description states that you are going to be developing systems to enable programs developed for our entertainment consoles to run on game consoles with different architectures. Specifically, we will create a large number of game titles developed for PlayStation to run on a new system architecture. This system must be equipped with a mechanism to facilitate direct analysis in events of problems. Also, bear in mind the weird, rough translation. This was in Japanese. But I think that is a pretty clear sign that Sony is doing something. It might not necessarily be a PSP 2 or something that we might initially determine that is a handheld, but it's kind of hard to not see that Sony is working on something, whether it's a portable or maybe a small console or something like that, that has the ability to play their legacy titles. Going back to that Russian leak, it says to start with PS4 games, which indicates that it will eventually run PS5 titles, which would be amazing, and an incredibly smart decision. And it's probably why Sony is waiting and taking their time making this handheld, buying time, letting more PS5 games come out, and letting the hardware get to reach a point on the portable side that it could match the performance of the PlayStation 5. So they don't necessarily have to worry about people not supporting their new handheld like they did with the Vita. And since they would be both running on similar AMD architectures, it'd actually be fairly easy for them just to release the one version of the game to run on both systems. So it's not like you have to develop a separate version of your game to run on Sony's handheld. You just need to develop the one version, and it's up to the player whether or not they want to play it on the PSP 2 or on the PS5, which is an incredibly unique strategy. It's a different take on what Nintendo's doing. Instead of developing for two separate platforms, a Wii successor and the 3DS, they decided to merge their mobile and their home console markets into the Nintendo Switch. While Sony isn't necessarily splitting or combining their demographics to just have one system, they're splitting it in such a way that you don't need to sacrifice either or. You can play the same exact games on each system, but you would have to realistically have to wait quite a while for the portable version to come out, which I think is a very smart decision, because to get people to start investing in your ecosystem, start buying your games on your platform, then once the handheld comes out, they'll inevitably buy that too to keep playing their games on the go. I would be very interested to see how this kind of device in this sort of system would function. And the idea that it would have native support for PS4 games is truly astounding. And hopefully in somewhere in that translation layer that they're going to be developing evidently through this job listing is to allow for higher FPS, because dear God, if I get to play Bloodborne portably, which is amazing, but if it's still 30 FPS, I'm going to cry. Sony has a huge catalog of exclusive titles that, yes, have been finally trickling their way onto PC, which is probably why they have been doing this, is to see how their games run on other hardware, stuff like the Steam Deck, the Ally, the Legion Go, other devices running AMD APUs. I haven't been able to find any rumors or leaks talking about pricing, so I just thought I'd offer my thoughts, opinions, and my speculations on what pricing could look like for a PSP 2. And at the moment, I think it'd probably be somewhere between $300 and $350, assuming that it is a similar power level as the original PS5. At least, it would be amazing to see that around the $300 to $350 price point. Be super cool at $250, but that seems unlikely. And especially if it's going to start competing more directly with the Switch, I feel like that would be a much more effective price point. Because if Nintendo launches a Switch 2 at $300 or $350, if that's the case, that would give Sony some time after the Switch 2's release to adjust their pricing. It would be hyper competitive at that $300 price point, but I could see, because of that, extra power and that already having a huge back catalog of games, they might want to go more, heavy on the pricing, so they might do $350, but either way, I think it'd be a very good deal. Japan has always loved their handhelds, Nintendo Switch being one of the most popular handhelds in Japan. The Vita did amazing in Japan, being one of the main reasons why we kept getting so many games for the Vita, just because how many people bought the Vita specifically in Japan. After the Vita got discontinued, Sony sacrificed their whole mobile division and sacrificed that entire market share to Nintendo. And Nintendo has dominated in Japan ever since. And I feel like Sony would be now considering going back into that market after seeing the whole advent of the PC handhelds and the Switch, and potentially the Switch 2's massive potential success. And if the idea Sony is going with, having a similar architecture to the PS5, being able to play the same games, having native backwards compatibility with PS4 titles, would be an amazing handheld with an amazing lineup of titles right from the get-go. I would love and hope that this is what Sony is doing, but it will be a very long time before we can get any more concrete information, because it's not like Sony's going to come out during E3 and say, hey, by the way, we're making a new handheld. We probably won't get any more concrete rumors for a while, and at best we might not see this thing for 2 years. So that would be 2026. So that would be like 6 years after the original release of the PS5. So by that point, we'd be already looking at next generation. Assuming this generation lasts just as long as the last one did, it's gonna go for another, 4 or 3 years, depending on whether or not they want to, jump a little bit sooner than they did last generation, or about the same time. So that means for this potential handheld, we'd only get 2 years of new releases before a new system would come out. And of course, it would be like a transitionary period where there'd be cross-generation titles, and we still are getting cross-gen titles, for Christ's sake. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is coming to the original DVR Xbox One from 2013. So there wouldn't be any short supply on new games for this potential PSP successor, but it would be rather disappointing for after like 4 years of this new device being out, it gets either replaced or support is dropped by new games. Granted though, it is going to be a massive library full of huge game titles, so it would be kind of hard to complain. I would love to hear what you guys think. Are you interested in this potential PlayStation Portable successor? Are you excited? Do you believe in any of these rumors? What would be a PS4 game you would want to play portably that's exclusive to the PS4? I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. It's very interesting stuff. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media coverage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.